Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's great to be able to be here and to talk on behalf of the great people of Dufferin-Caledon who've re-elected me to come to the House of Commons and fight for common sense, which is often a difficult thing to do with this Liberal government. And this piece of legislation is the perfect example of why we have to fight. So I want to talk a little bit about how these Liberals have absolutely destroyed the consensus in Canada on immigration, how they've botched the immigration system in so many ways, and they've brought that incompetent approach to this particular piece of legislation. And the consequences for this, of course, Mr. Speaker, will be far and wide, and ultimately Canadians will pay the price, like they pay the price for all of the Liberal mistakes and errors and debacles and corruption over the past 10 years. So what pains me the most to talk about the breakdown of the consensus in this country on immigration and refugees is the fact that my wife actually came to Canada as a refugee. She's a Kosovar Albanian, and Canada had a wonderful program, Operation Parasol, to bring Kosovar Albanians fleeing from the ethnic cleansing that was going on in Kosovo at that time. And to see the reports of the decline on the consensus of Canada, known as the beacon of acceptance for immigration and refugees, watch that decline happen over the past 10 years because of Liberal incompetence it's really actually heartbreaking. And most Canadians, I think, are heartbroken by this. There's a couple of polls actually that talk about this, which are really, in my estimation, tragic. Polera had a study in 2025 that compared to views from 2002. In 2002, immigration was viewed as a positive +31. In 2025, it's now down to a +2. That's a 29-point decline as a result of the mess that these people have made with respect to the immigration system. So these are catastrophic declines. And you also would look at the share of people who believe that Canada is accepting too many immigrants. Again, we go back to 2002, it was 34%. We look at 2025, it's now at 60%. Now, who's responsible for that? It's not the people that come to Canada. That's not their fault. They came to Canada because they want the opportunities and the better life that Canada provides, just like my wife and her family. My wife came to Canada with English as a second language. In fact, she spoke no English and went to high school and has gone on to get a master's degree and has had a great career. That's the epitome of why people come to Canada, because of the opportunities that this great company affords. So when we look at what they've done, the mess they've made with the immigration system, it's a tragedy for all Canadians. And the fault and the buck stops 100% with the people on the other side here, because they've made this absolute mess. Now, I could talk for 3 hours about the actual specifics of the mess, but I mean, I would point out that at one point, this Liberal government allowed and accused ISIS terrorists to immigrate to Canada. This person was accused in 2015 of being in a video where they dismembered someone, and they let this person come to Canada. This is the disrepute they've brought the system into. And in fact, in 2024, Mr. Speaker, I actually did an OPQ, and I asked how many people were processing applications in CIC and how many applications were actually coming in. And then you can do some simple math. I know math isn't great for these guys. They think that an affordable housing program is 4,000 houses for $13 billion. So math is not their strong suit. Fair. But when you actually broke down the number of people who were processing the applications and the number of applications that were coming in, because they had set the levels so high, it worked out that someone assessing an immigration application had 30 minutes per application. Wow. 30 minutes. So you can imagine how someone like the person I just described ended up in Canada. You increase the volumes of people to such high levels, you have no security screening, and you end up with the challenges that we have. So again, now they've brought forward a piece of legislation on citizenship. And let me say, I'm a proud Canadian. I know my wife's proud Canadian, their whole family, they are proud Canadians as well. And they have created this very weak, substantial connection test. Now, what does that mean? Most people who are listening won't understand what that means, so I'm going to explain it. It means that, according to the Liberals, if you want to have Canadian citizenship extended to yourself and your children for generations on, you have 1,095 non-consecutive days in Canada. Now, what's the proof for that? They haven't even said. So somebody could just say, yeah, I spent 1,095 days in Canada over the last 25 years, and therefore my children, their children's children, and on we go, they all get Canadian citizenship. Now, this is weakening Canadian citizenship. It is making Canadians, and they don't even know the numbers of people this is going to affect, how many people that this citizenship is going to be extended to. And there would be no security checks. So we just talked about how the lack of security checks let an alleged ISIS terrorist into Canada, someone who was on a video in 2015 dismembering someone, but they don't think security checks would be an important part of extending citizenship to people who have no real connection with Canada. Maybe they spent 1,095 days in Canada at some point over their lifetime, maybe not, because we don't know how they're going to prove it, and they don't have to have a security check. They're going to try and say this is all very normal, we're solving a problem. Mr. Speaker, it's not normal. This approach isn't normal in the developed world. The United States, Britain, France, Italy, all cap citizenship to the first generation born abroad. Now, that's important because there is value in Canadian citizenship, and they are going to extend this to all kinds of people who have very little connection to Canada. And how far will that extend? We actually don't have the numbers. We have maybe some estimates, but even the government doesn't know, which of course doesn't surprise me because they come up with things on the back of a napkin and never know what the consequence of that's going to be. It's much like when I was the shadow minister for the environment and I asked the deputy minister, what is the actual build out of the cost of the charging network all across Canada when we get to the 100% zero emission vehicle mandate? They looked at me and said, we haven't calculated that to the end point. So you're going to mandate no one gets to drive a gas-powered vehicle. They all have to be zero-emission vehicles, and you don't know what the cost of the charging network is going to be. This is how Liberals have run this country for the last 10 years, which is why we're in the mess we are on a whole host of levels. So I just had a town hall in the town of Bolton a couple of weeks ago, and let me tell you, immigration was absolutely on the agenda. So when I talk about the statistics of the decline in support for immigration, I felt it in person at that meeting. People are saying, Kyle, the numbers are too high. Now, if I had talked about this particular piece of legislation, I didn't get the opportunity, I know what the good people of Dufferin-Caledon would have said. They would have said, that's ridiculous. And many of the people in that town hall are immigrants. They came to this country because they wanted the opportunity that Canada provides. They would have been outraged with the decision to do this. So what has been the consequence of the mess they've made of immigration in Canada? We can look at the jobs market. Big topic of discussion at my town hall was my son, my daughter can't get a job, which is one of the reasons why we have said we are eliminating the temporary foreign worker program. Because far too many people have come into this country taking jobs away from Canadians. So the TFW program is a part of that problem. The mess on immigration is going to take a very long time to fix, the Liberal mess on immigration. So when we look at this, we see an absolute another mess happening that the Liberals didn't have to make. They could have fixed this problem very simply, but they didn't. They chose a weak test, 1,095 days. At any point in your life, you get Canadian citizenship, and you can then pass it on to your children. Mr. Speaker, this is a terrible piece of legislation. Conservatives fought it in the last Parliament. We will fight it in this Parliament, and we will seek to make amendments to bring some common sense to this terrible piece of legislation. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Carleton Trade Eagle Creek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for that excellent we on this side of the House have with this piece of legislation. I know that he's mentioned his wife and his wife's family who have come to Canada and who have embraced becoming Canadian citizens. And I'm wondering if he could comment on what the impact of reducing the requirement to obtain citizenship has on those individuals who are coming to Canada, who are going through the process, who perhaps are even fleeing persecution. What impact does that have on those individuals who have gone through a very lengthy process? Thank you.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague makes a perfect point on this. The people who have come to Canada because they wanted a better life, they played by the rules, they've worked hard, they've made fantastic lives and contributions to this country. They are going to look at this as an affront to the hard work that they did to come to Canada and become a successful and proud Canadian citizen. They would be outraged that someone who has spent almost no time in the country, it's not even any consecutive days. You could have spent something like 10 days in Canada over 30 years. Like you basically vacationed here for 10 days over 30 years, you're going to get Canadian citizenship. It's outrageous. We're against it, and we will fight it.
Questions and comments? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, very quickly, Mr. Speaker, the year 2002 that he cited immigration as being really good, I acknowledge that. What he doesn't do is he doesn't cite the many years in which Harper's administration was a disaster to immigration, where they, for example, deleted those applications, literally hundreds of thousands of individuals that were in the process of coming to Canada, or the 7-year waiting times in order to sponsor a parent, or the cancelling of parents and grandparents program. There were serious problems that we were able to rectify. Today's issues is more of the temporary visas, and this is something in which the current Prime Minister has indicated that we are going to get on the right track, and we're working aggressively to do that. But my question to the member, Mr. Speaker, if I may, is using the example of Anna in the forces. She goes abroad, she has a child, comes back, her child then goes abroad to work. Should the child of that individual have the opportunity, or Anna's grandson or granddaughter have the opportunity?
I have to give a chance to the member to respond.
Speaker, I don't know if his discussion of the Conservative record on immigration is ignorance or if his statements are malicious. But either way, they're completely erroneous and false.
A point of order for the Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
A point of order, Mr. Speaker. They're neither. They're factual.
As the Parliamentary Secretary well knows, that's a matter of debate. I'll let the member for Dufferin-Caledon finish.
When Prime Minister Harper took over, there was a massive backlog in the parent and grandparent category. They took over from the Liberals, around 150,000 people. So we were left with the mess that they left. Same thing in every single category. And so what we actually did is we put a temporary pause on the parent and grandparent application process, and then we cleared the entire backlog. So for him to try and stand here and say everything was rosy under a Liberal government and then somehow things changed. Look, Mr. Speaker, I know I'm not allowed to use certain words in this place, but what he's saying is worse than categorically false.
Yeah.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's just factually incorrect. I was the critic at the time. If the member was there, he would know that actually the waiting times to get a spouse was years through the Harper era. The Harper government literally canceled the parent and grandparent sponsorship program. The reason why they canceled it is because it was such a disaster that it took up to 7 years to get and sponsor a parent or grandparent to come to Canada. Harper was a disaster on immigration as a whole. Would he not confess to the reality of the situation? After all, he was there, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure if he was to... And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that he can recall that.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon in 25 seconds or less.
I confess he lives in an alternate reality, Mr. Speaker, because this was how they set up the parent and grandparent program. An unlimited number of people could apply, then they let in 14,000 people. All those other people went on a waiting list. The next year, they opened it up. An unlimited number of people could apply, they let 14,000 in. All the rest went on a waiting list. The next year, and so on, and so on, and so on. That's how they managed the parent and grandparent category. It was an absolute mess. We had to clean it up, and guess what? A Conservative government are going to clean up a lot of messes, including the...
Resuming debate.